What if becoming a powerful woman has nothing to do with being louder, richer, or more successful than everyone around you? What if real power begins with something much simpler? The habits you practice when nobody is watching, the way you speak to yourself, the standards you refuse to lower, the courage to say no, the ability to keep moving when nobody applauds. Today, we're going to uncover 6 habits that can completely change the way you see yourself and the way the world responds to you. A powerful woman knows that success is not just about what she wants to achieve. It is about understanding why she wants to achieve it. Because when you know your why, you stop living according to everyone else's expectations and start building a life that actually belongs to you. There will be moments when motivation disappears. There will be mornings when getting out of bed feels difficult. Moments when people doubt you, and seasons when your progress seems invisible. In those moments, goals alone may not be enough to keep you moving, but purpose can. Your why becomes the reason you continue when the excitement is gone. Think about how often people chase things because they believe those things will finally make them feel successful. A better job, more money, a bigger house, more followers, more recognition. None of these things are necessarily wrong. The problem begins when you achieve them and still feel empty. You reach the destination, look around, and realize you were running towards something without ever asking yourself why. A powerful woman asks that question. Why does this matter to me? Why do I want this life? Why am I willing to work for it? Why am I willing to sacrifice comfort today for something meaningful tomorrow? Those questions create clarity. When you know your why, your decisions become easier. You don't have to say yes to every opportunity because you understand what actually deserves your time. You don't have to follow every trend because you know what you're building. You don't need constant approval because your direction comes from something deeper than other people's opinions. And that's where real confidence begins. Confidence isn't always walking into a room believing you're the smartest person there. Sometimes confidence is knowing exactly what matters to you and refusing to abandon it just because someone else doesn't understand it. There will always be people who question your choices. Some will tell you that you're dreaming too big. Others will tell you to be more realistic. Some may even become uncomfortable when you begin changing. But when you know your purpose, their opinions don't have the power to completely redirect your life. Your why becomes your anchor. It reminds you who you are when circumstances try to convince you otherwise. It gives you something to return to when you experience failure. Because failure doesn't automatically mean you chose the wrong path. Sometimes it simply means you discovered another way that doesn't work. A woman with purpose doesn't measure her entire identity by one bad day, one rejection, one mistake, or one person's opinion. She understands that her journey is bigger than a temporary setback. And perhaps most importantly, knowing your why changes the way you define success. Success stops being about proving something to people who doubted you. It becomes about becoming the person you know you're capable of becoming. It becomes about building something meaningful, creating value, helping others, protecting the people you love, developing your potential, and living according to your deepest principles. Your why doesn't have to be extraordinary. It doesn't need to impress anyone. Maybe your why is creating a better life for your family. Maybe it's becoming financially independent. Maybe it's breaking a pattern that has existed for generations. Maybe it's proving to yourself that you can finish what you started. Maybe it's simply becoming the strongest, wisest, and most authentic version of yourself. Whatever it is, protect it. Because when you know why you're doing something, discipline becomes easier, sacrifice becomes meaningful, patience becomes possible, and obstacles become challenges rather than reasons to quit. So don't just ask yourself, what do I want? Ask the deeper question, why do I want it? Because when your why is clear, your direction becomes clear. And when your direction becomes clear, you stop living accidentally. You begin living intentionally. That is one of the quietest forms of power a woman can possess. Knowing what she stands for, knowing what she is building, and having the courage to keep walking toward it, even when nobody else can see the destination yet. One of the most powerful habits a woman can develop is learning to keep promises to herself. It sounds simple, but it can completely change the way you see yourself. Every time you tell yourself you are going to do something, and then actually do it, you build trust with the most important person in your life. You think about how easily we keep promises to other people. If you tell a friend you will meet them at a certain time, you try to be there. If your family needs something from you, you make an effort. If your boss gives you a deadline, you work toward it. But how often do we make promises to ourselves and quietly break them? You say, tomorrow I will start. Tomorrow comes and you don't. You say, I will wake up early. The alarm rings and you hit snooze. You say, I will take better care of myself. Then another week passes without changing anything. Each individual decision may seem small. But over time, those broken promises can change the way you think about yourself. Somewhere deep inside, you begin to believe that your own words don't mean much. A powerful woman changes that relationship. She doesn't wait for someone else to hold her accountable. She learns to become accountable to herself. If she says she will spend 30 minutes learning something new, she does it. If she decides to exercise, she shows up. If she promises herself that she will stop accepting disrespect, she follows through. Not because every day is easy, but because she understands that self-respect is built through action. You don't build confidence by constantly telling yourself that you're amazing. You build confidence by giving yourself evidence. Every time you keep a commitment, you create evidence that says, I can trust myself. And that trust becomes powerful. It changes the way you walk into difficult situations. It changes the way you handle challenges. You begin to believe that even if something goes wrong, you will find a way forward because you've already proven to yourself that you can follow through. The goal isn't perfection. That's important to understand. A powerful woman will still have difficult days. She will sometimes lose focus. She will make mistakes. She will occasionally choose comfort when she should have chosen discipline. The difference is that she doesn't use one mistake as an excuse to abandon herself. She resets. She starts again. She keeps moving, because keeping promises to yourself isn't about completing every goal perfectly. It's about developing a pattern of returning to your commitments. Start small. Don't promise yourself that you will completely transform your life overnight. Make one commitment that you can realistically keep. Read 10 pages. Take a walk. Finish the task you've been avoiding. Spend an hour learning a valuable skill. Put your phone away for 30 minutes and focus on something important. Then do it. The size of the promise doesn't matter as much as the consistency behind it. Every small promise you keep becomes a brick in the foundation of self-trust. Eventually, those bricks become something stronger: discipline, confidence, resilience, and self-respect. And there is another powerful lesson here. You don't need an audience. Nobody needs to know that you woke up early. Nobody needs to see that you worked when you didn't feel motivated. Nobody needs to applaud you for choosing discipline over distraction. Some of the most important victories in your life will happen in complete silence. That's where character is built. The woman you become when nobody is watching is often more important than the image you present when everyone is watching. So make fewer promises, but make them meaningful. And when you make one, honor it, because every time you keep your word to yourself, you are sending a powerful message to your own mind. I matter. My goals matter. My future matters. And I can count on myself. That is where real confidence begins, not in the approval of other people, but in the quiet certainty that when you say you will show up for yourself, you actually do. A powerful woman understands that her energy is one of her most valuable resources. She knows that time can be measured by a clock, but energy determines what she can actually do with that time. You can have 24 hours in a day, but if your mind is exhausted, your emotions are constantly being drained, and your attention is scattered across everyone else's problems, those hours will not produce the life you want. That is why she learns to protect her energy. She understands that not every conversation deserves her response. Not every argument deserves her attention. Not every person deserves unlimited access to her time. And not every problem that appears in front of her is hers to solve. This doesn't mean she becomes cold or selfish. It means she becomes intentional. There is a difference between caring about people and carrying everyone. You can love someone without taking responsibility for every emotion they experience. You can support someone without sacrificing your own peace. You can listen without allowing someone else's negativity to become your identity. A powerful woman learns this distinction. She begins paying attention to what happens after certain interactions. Some people leave you feeling inspired, understood, and energized. Others leave you mentally exhausted, questioning yourself, or replaying the conversation for hours. When you recognize that pattern, you have information. And powerful people learn to use information to make better decisions. Sometimes protecting your energy means creating distance. Sometimes it means saying no. And sometimes it simply means refusing to participate. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to defend yourself against every accusation. You don't have to explain every decision you make. There are moments when silence is more powerful than another paragraph of explanation. Saying no can feel uncomfortable, especially if you've spent years trying to make everyone happy. You may worry that people will think you're rude, difficult, or selfish. But remember this, every yes has a cost. When you say yes to something, you're giving away a portion of your time, attention, or energy. So before you say yes, ask yourself, is this actually aligned with what matters to me? If the answer is no, you are allowed to decline. Your boundaries are not walls designed to keep everyone out. They are standards that teach people how to treat you and help you decide what you will and will not accept. A powerful woman doesn't wait until she is completely exhausted before establishing boundaries. She creates them before resentment takes over. She protects her mornings because she knows how important her mindset is. She protects her focus because she knows distraction is expensive. She protects her peace because she understands that constant emotional chaos makes it difficult to build anything meaningful. And she learns that protecting energy also means protecting attention. In a world designed to compete for your attention, your ability to focus has become a form of power. Every notification, argument, comparison, and endless scroll can pull you away from the things that actually matter. You cannot build an extraordinary life while constantly giving your attention to everything that demands it. So become selective. Choose what you read. Choose what you listen to. Choose the conversations you participate in. Choose the people you allow close to you. Choose the environments that influence your thinking. Because your environment shapes you more than you realize. If you're constantly surrounded by people who complain, criticize, and discourage growth, eventually their limitations can begin to sound like your own thoughts. But when you spend time around people who challenge you, encourage you, and believe in growth, your perspective can expand. Protecting your energy doesn't mean avoiding every difficult person or difficult situation. Sometimes life requires difficult conversations. Sometimes you must confront problems instead of escaping them. The difference is that you choose your battles rather than allowing every battle to choose you. Your energy is limited. Your attention is limited. Your time is limited. Spend them where they create meaning. The moment you stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace, you begin to operate differently. You stop chasing approval. You stop explaining yourself to everyone. You stop trying to rescue people who refuse to change, and you start investing that energy into something far more valuable, your own growth, because the goal isn't to become unavailable to the world. The goal is to become available for the things that truly matter. Protect your energy. Protect your focus. Protect your peace. Not because you don't care about others, but because you finally understand that you cannot give your best to the world when you are constantly abandoning yourself. A powerful woman understands that comfort can feel safe while quietly keeping her small. She knows that the life she wants may require decisions that make her uncomfortable, conversations she would rather avoid, and steps she has never taken before. She doesn't wait for fear to disappear before moving forward. She learns to move with fear beside her. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that something matters more than the fear standing between you and it. There will always be a reason to stay where you are. Maybe you are afraid of failure. Maybe you're afraid of what people will say. Maybe you've tried before and it didn't work. Maybe you're worried that you're not ready. These thoughts are normal. But if you allow every fear to make your decisions, eventually your life becomes a collection of things you never attempted. A powerful woman recognizes that. She asks herself a different question. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" she asks, "What will happen if I never try?" That question changes everything. Because sometimes the greatest risk isn't failure. Sometimes the greatest risk is spending years knowing you could have become more, done more, experienced more, and created more, but you were too afraid to begin. Growth rarely happens inside perfect conditions. You don't suddenly become courageous when everything is certain. You become courageous by taking one uncertain step, then another, and discovering that you can survive the discomfort. Maybe you need to apply for the opportunity you think you're not qualified for. Maybe you need to start the business you've been talking about for years. Maybe you need to leave a situation that no longer respects your values. Maybe you need to speak up in a room where you've always stayed silent. The decision will feel uncomfortable. Take the step anyway. A powerful woman doesn't confuse comfort with happiness. Sometimes what feels comfortable today can create pain tomorrow. Staying silent may feel easier than having an honest conversation, but avoiding the conversation doesn't make the problem disappear. Staying in the same routine may feel safe, but it can also keep you from discovering what you're capable of becoming. Comfort has a purpose. It gives you rest. It gives you recovery. But comfort was never designed to become your permanent address. There is a difference between resting and hiding. Resting prepares you to move forward. Hiding keeps you from moving at all. And sometimes courage means starting before you feel ready. You may never feel 100% prepared. You may never have complete certainty. You may never receive everyone's approval. If you wait for all of those things, you may wait forever. Start with what you know. Take the next step. Learn as you go. Every courageous decision builds evidence that you are capable of handling uncertainty. The first difficult conversation makes the second one easier. The first rejection teaches you that rejection isn't the end. The first time you stand up for yourself teaches you that your voice matters. Courage grows through use. Think about a muscle. You don't build strength by admiring it. You build strength by challenging it repeatedly. Courage works the same way. You strengthen it through action. And don't expect courage to always look dramatic. Sometimes courage is quietly saying, "This isn't right for me anymore." Sometimes it is admitting, "I made a mistake." Sometimes it is asking for help. Sometimes it is starting over. Sometimes it is walking away from something you desperately wanted because you finally realized it wasn't good for you. These decisions may not receive applause. Nobody may understand them. But that doesn't make them less courageous. A powerful woman learns to measure her life by her values rather than by other people's reactions. She understands that if she constantly chooses what makes everyone else comfortable, she may eventually become uncomfortable with herself. So she chooses courage, not recklessness, not unnecessary conflict, not proving herself to everyone. Courage with purpose. She knows when to push forward and when to pause. She knows that fear can provide information without becoming the person making the decision. And every time she chooses courage over comfort, she expands the boundaries of her life. The world becomes bigger. Her confidence becomes stronger. Her possibilities become clearer. So the next time you feel afraid, don't immediately assume that fear means stop. Ask yourself what the fear is protecting you from and what it might be preventing you from becoming. Because sometimes the door to your next chapter doesn't open when you feel fearless. It opens when you decide that your future is worth being uncomfortable for. A powerful woman understands that lifting others does not require her to make herself smaller. She doesn't need to compete with every woman around her because she has learned that another woman's success is not evidence of her own failure. She can celebrate someone else's achievement while continuing to build her own life. That mindset changes everything. There is a quiet strength in being able to say, "I'm happy for you," without secretly feeling threatened. In a world that often encourages comparison, this is a powerful choice. Someone else may be more successful, more experienced, more confident, or further ahead than you right now. But their journey does not erase yours. A powerful woman knows that comparison can steal the joy from progress. If you constantly measure yourself against someone else's timeline, you will always find a reason to feel behind. Instead, she asks a better question. Am I becoming better than the person I was yesterday? That question brings her attention back to where it belongs. She understands that confidence doesn't require competition. You don't have to be the only successful woman in the room to know that you belong there. You don't have to dim another person's light to make yours visible. In fact, one of the strongest things you can do is create an environment where other people feel confident enough to shine. Think about what happens when a woman shares knowledge instead of keeping it secret. When she introduces another woman to an opportunity, when she recommends someone's work, when she gives credit instead of taking it, when she encourages someone who is struggling, those actions may seem small, but they create something much bigger. Trust. And trust creates stronger communities. A powerful woman doesn't see every relationship as a transaction. She doesn't constantly ask, "What can this person do for me?" She also asks, what can I contribute? That doesn't mean giving everything away or allowing people to take advantage of her. Remember, strength still requires boundaries. Helping others should not mean abandoning yourself. Supporting someone should not require sacrificing your own values. The healthiest form of generosity comes from strength, not desperation. You can help someone without becoming responsible for their entire life. You can encourage someone without solving every problem for them. You can open a door without carrying them through it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can give another person is belief. A few honest words can change someone's direction. I believe you can do this. You have more potential than you realize. Don't give up yet. Those words may take only seconds to say, but they can stay with someone for years. And here's something important. Powerful women understand that leadership isn't always about being at the front. Sometimes leadership means standing beside someone and helping them discover their own strength. When you help another person grow, you don't lose anything. You expand the circle of possibility. Imagine a workplace where women don't constantly compete for recognition, but actively recognize each other's contributions. Imagine friendships where success is celebrated rather than questioned. Imagine families where young girls grow up watching women support women instead of tearing each other down. That kind of environment creates confidence, and confidence creates action. But lifting others also requires emotional maturity. You will encounter people who don't celebrate you. Some may criticize you, compete with you, or misunderstand your intentions. A powerful woman doesn't allow that behavior to turn her into someone she doesn't want to become. She doesn't respond to insecurity with insecurity. She stays grounded. She continues to grow. She remembers that her character matters more than winning every interaction. Because true power isn't measured by how many people you can intimidate. It is measured by how many people feel stronger, safer, and more capable because you were part of their journey. And there is another lesson here. You don't have to shrink to make others comfortable. You can be ambitious and kind. You can be successful and humble. You can be confident without being arrogant. You can set high standards without looking down on people who are still learning. You can take your place at the table while making room for someone else. That is the balance. A powerful woman knows her worth, but she doesn't need everyone else to feel worthless in order to prove it. So celebrate other women. Share what you know. Give credit. Offer encouragement. Create opportunities when you can. And when someone else succeeds, let their success remind you that possibility exists. Because the world doesn't need more women competing to prove who is the most powerful. It needs women who understand their own power so deeply that they can use it to create more power around them. When you lift someone else without lowering yourself, you don't become smaller. You become part of something bigger. A powerful woman understands that meaningful success is rarely built overnight. She knows that the most valuable things in life require patience, consistency, and the willingness to continue when the results are not immediately visible. She doesn't need everything to happen today because she is focused on building something that can last tomorrow. We live in a world that constantly tells us to want everything faster. Faster success, faster money, faster recognition, faster results. But real growth doesn't always work that way. Some of the most important changes in your life happen so slowly that you don't even notice them at first. A powerful woman understands this. She doesn't judge her entire journey by one difficult week. She doesn't quit because one opportunity failed. She doesn't assume that a slow season means she is going nowhere. She understands that progress is often invisible before it becomes obvious. Think about a seed planted beneath the soil. For a while, nothing appears to be happening. You cannot see the roots growing. You cannot see the foundation being built. But underneath the surface, something is happening. Your life can be the same. The days when you're learning, practicing, working, saving, improving, and starting again may not look impressive from the outside. But those ordinary days are often creating the foundation for extraordinary results. This is why patience is not weakness. Patience is the ability to remain committed while the results are still developing. A powerful woman doesn't need constant applause to continue. She doesn't need everyone to understand her vision. She doesn't need immediate proof that every decision is working. She trusts the process enough to keep showing up. That doesn't mean she refuses to change direction. Playing the long game isn't about stubbornly staying on a path that clearly isn't working. It means she doesn't abandon meaningful goals simply because progress is slower than expected. She evaluates, she learns, she adjusts, and then she continues. This mindset changes the way you respond to setbacks. Instead of seeing failure as a final judgment, you begin to see it as information. Something didn't work. Fine. What can you learn from it? What can you improve? What can you do differently next time? That's resilience. Resilience isn't pretending that disappointment doesn't hurt. It is feeling the disappointment and deciding that it doesn't get to define your future. There will be seasons when you work harder than everyone realizes. There will be moments when your effort produces very little visible reward. You may wonder whether anyone notices. Keep going. Not because every struggle automatically guarantees success, but because meaningful goals require sustained effort. And remember, the long game is not just about career or money. It applies to relationships, character, health, knowledge, confidence, and personal growth. You don't become emotionally strong after one difficult conversation. You become stronger through repeated experiences where you learn how to respond rather than react. You don't build expertise after watching one video. You build it through years of learning and practice. You don't create trust in one day. You create it through consistent behavior. You don't build a strong life through one dramatic decision. You build it through hundreds of ordinary decisions repeated over time. That is why consistency can be more powerful than intensity. Anyone can become motivated for a day. The real question is whether you can continue when motivation disappears. A powerful woman builds systems and habits that keep her moving even when she doesn't feel inspired. She understands that motivation comes and goes, but commitment can remain. She also stops rushing her timeline because she understands that everyone has a different starting point. Someone else's success may appear overnight, but you don't see the years that came before the moment everyone noticed them. Don't compare your beginning to someone else's chapter 20. Stay focused on your own path. Your goal is not to become successful as quickly as possible. Your goal is to become strong enough, wise enough, and prepared enough to sustain the success when it arrives. Because getting something is one challenge. Keeping it is another. A powerful woman builds the capacity to handle what she is asking for. She doesn't just chase the result. She becomes the person capable of carrying that result responsibly. So if your progress feels slow right now, don't automatically assume you're failing. Maybe you're building roots. Maybe you're learning. Maybe you're becoming stronger. Maybe the foundation is being created before anyone can see the structure. Keep taking the next step. Keep learning. Keep improving. Keep showing up. Because the long game belongs to the people who can remain committed after the excitement fades. And one day, you may look back and realize that the small choices you thought didn't matter were actually changing everything. You didn't transform your life in one moment. You transformed it through consistency, one decision, one habit, one courageous step, repeated long enough to become who you were always capable of becoming.